Hi, I'm Dr. Paul, and let me answer one of the questions I commonly get is how to maximize your profit or how to maximize or what should I charge? That's a real common question I get with chiropractors. So let me just share with you my experience and what I've learned to create we did about 80 to $100 million a year out of 1,700 square feet with, let's see, one or four employees. So let me share with you how that works. So here's the first thing that we want to do is the very first thing is patient retention. So the very first thing, and you got to kind of remember the statistics that only 1% of millionaires become millionaires exchanging time for money. And the reason is you have limited time. And then 14% become millionaires by leveraging money. Usually that's investing in stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And then 85% of the millionaires become millionaires leveraging their time. And in my case, I did all three. And we ended up opening 77 offices in 20 states, along with real estate. So let's walk through the steps of how you can maximize your income. So where does it all start? It all starts with learning the skills to maximizing your exchange of time. That's number one. So the very first thing to learn is to maximize your time. The next level is to maximize your amount of money per unit of time. The next level is leveraging your money, and the next level is leveraging your time. So that's the formula, the layers, and it does take that skill set and that knowledge to build it up. So here's how it goes. So specifically with chiropractors, number one is patient retention. So remember, there's three types of patient retention. There's symptom care. There's basically the functional capacity care that's based on the science of the three phases of healing. And then there's lifestyle care. So there's basically three different types of care. Okay, so that's where it starts. So first we have to learn when I was beginning chiropractor, I learned how to overcome market forces and communicate effectively where patients stayed for care, not just how they feel better after a few visits. How do they stay for all three phases of healing? So that's the first thing. So what we do, and I did this when I trained doctors. What's most important is that you learn the system, not the money. If you go after the money first, that typically always collapses, and doctors who do that usually never do well because they never learn the skill sets and the knowledge it takes to get up to that point. So the very first thing, so as an example, I have doctors come in and they're only comfortable maybe recommending 10 visits, at $20 a visit. That's their comfort level. So I always start at the comfort level, okay? And then we go, okay, we're going to learn how to communicate patient education based on the science of the three phases of healing. And we're going to keep an eye on your statistics. So then we go, because remember, it's not the money that I'm paying attention to right now, it's the process. And then I have to take the doctor through 4 stages of awareness. We've got to go from unconscious incompetence, what they don't know, to conscious incompetence, to them now knowing what they don't know, to conscious competence, they can do it, but they're not real good at it, to ultimately getting to the point of unconscious competence. They're good at it and they don't have to think about it. That's where we want to be. So paying attention to these as we move through all these phases. So the first step, we're going to go ahead and pay attention to the skill set and communication on the 3 phases of healing. And we want over 50% of the patients to prepay. That's the number we're going to be paying attention to. Prepays that's what determines your skill level. So it doesn't matter how good you think you are. What matters is what people end up doing, how they end up interacting with you. So the bare minimum, I'd say, is 50%. And the goal is like up to around 70%, even up to 80%, but 70% is a real good number. That means the majority of people agree with you. That's what that means. You had less than 50%, it means you're probably a bad communicator. That's what it means. You need to work on yourself, your skill level, your knowledge, all those things. So what we do is we start real small. We don't start with money. We go real small. We go, let's just get successful at recommending 10 visits, at a low dollar amount and getting over 50% of the people to say, yeah, because we're paying attention to confidence, conviction, and confrontation. Those are the 3 things we're paying a lot of attention to, especially confidence. You can't destroy somebody's confidence in training. That's when they totally stop doing it. And I see this all the time. Doctors try something, they're not real good at it. They get a lot of negative feedback and they quit. I see that. I mean, that's just kind of in life what people do. So we got to overcome that and know the psychology of what's going on to overcome it. So that's what I did. I took the doctors through. Okay, let's just do what you're comfortable with, but learn the system of communication that gets people to say yes. So they get over 50% of them to say yes. What do we do now? Do we increase the money? No. We're trying to at least get them to where they can deliver the service fully. In other words, give the recommendations for 3 phases of healing. And that'll vary. If you're younger and you don't have any injuries, you're 16 and you don't have any pre-existing injuries, you'll heal a lot quicker. If somebody's older, they'll have a lot of pre-existing injuries. It'll take a lot longer for them to heal. And to a large degree, they may not get 100% back to normal also. Okay. And that's all based on the science of the 3 phases of healing and the patient's biomarkers. That's what the care is based on. Okay, so we go ahead and we start patient education and we go, okay, let's say they get over 50% to go with 10 visits at a low dollar amount, say $20. Okay. Okay, great. What do we do next? Now we go, now we increment the visit. What's more important, the visit, the time, or the money? The time. The time's more important than the money because you'll never make the money if you're not good at the time. That's why. So the very first thing we want to do is learn how to max out our time. That's the first thing we want to do. Then go to max out the money. Okay. Because you'll leave a lot of money on the table if you never learn how to max. There's a lot of doctors, that see 70, 80, 100 visits a week for 10, 20, 30 years. And they're losing $250,000 a year. That's how much they're losing by not being productive. Instead of seeing, 100 visits a week or 200 visits a week, what they could see, they're seeing 100. Well, that's $250,000 easily to $300,000 a year. That's fast. Just because the doctor never learned to maximize his skill level, maximize his time in the office. That's why. Okay, so that's the first thing we want to do is maximize out the time. So let's say he goes 10 visits, and we're gonna consider a patient life cycle. Life cycles are when you see him 3 times a week, twice a week, or once a week. And that's about 4 months. So these are things and numbers we're going to pay attention to. So we'll go through the patient life cycle. We'll start where it's non-confrontational for the doctor. I mean, if 5 visits and $5 is where their comfort level's at, that's where we're starting. Because I'm trying to just get to the win. I'm just trying to start getting to the building the confidence and the win. So they get over 50% to prepay in a life cycle, then we increase the visits because time's more important than money right now. And then the mistake doctors make is they try to shoot too much. They get overconfident, and now they try to charge too much. And you never increase it more than 20%, preferably only 10%. So you increase it. So instead of $10, now you might charge $12 or $13 a visit. And I'm just trying to get a concept across, not that you would charge $13 a visit. I'm just trying to get a concept across. Okay, so now that's not too big of a jump money-wise to create a paradigm shift with the doctor. Now, remember, during this whole time, I've got to work on the doctor's confidence and I've got to work on their conviction level that they believe in what they're doing. Now, there's many ways of doing that. Reading about the science of the 3 phases of healing, case analysis, showing them pre and post, all that stuff goes into increasing conviction. And then also, so you got confidence, conviction, and confrontation. A lot of doctors are afraid to even talk about money. That's a real problem. So that alone takes stair stepping, starting with real low amounts, comfortable zones. So there's a lot to overcome. This does not come naturally. So, and that's why a lot of doctors don't recommend, full visits and a large amount of money. They don't have the conviction and they don't have the confrontation. That's usually it. And then they don't have the confidence. And if they do, it gets destroyed real fast because they're not good at it and they get rejected. And then they say it doesn't work, or, my community's not health-minded, or all the stuff that chiropractors say when they're not good and when they have low skill level. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So we'll go to say $13 a visit, watch the next cycle, stays above 50%. We'll go to $19 a visit. See, that's the step we stay on. or excuse me, not visit, but patient visits. So instead of 10 visits, we'll go to 12 visits. Then we'll go to 13 visits, and then we'll go to 17 visits. So you get the point. That's how we incrementally grow the visits until that unit has been maxed out. In other words, you can only charge so much for X car. And you got to now you got to sell a higher value car if you want more money. You can't. There is a tipping point for all products and services. So the first thing, that tipping point we want to get to is the doctor to be able to recommend and have a high percentage of acceptance over 50%. So we want to have the confidence, credibility, confrontation. So where they get over 50% of the people say yes, we'd like 70% at least. That's a good number. 50 is the minimum number. And they go, if it is, then we go, okay, let's add another 3 visits. And that's how until they can totally recommend, they have the confidence, confrontation, and conviction to totally recommend the total number of visits for the inflammation repair remodel phase based on that person, whether they're younger or older. Okay. And that's what should be done ethically and morally, but that's not when doctors have low confrontation and conviction. Okay. So let's say we get to that point. That's the first point. Now what do? Now we start increasing the money. Okay, so then, and there's multiple ways of doing that, but the first way is you just start increasing the fee. So what's the rule with that? Don't increase it more than 10%, definitely not 20. So if you were charging $20, now it might be 23. We'd only add $2 or $3. And then we'd watch that cycle again. We'd watch that 4-month cycle. We got over 50% pre-plays. Well, now instead of 13, we're going to go to 17. And from 17, we'll go to 20. And from 20 to 23, you get the point. That's how it's incrementally, and we're always watching that stat because the stat tells you how good you are, not your opinion. So if that stat goes under 50%, we got a problem. You either don't have the skill level, it's usually the skill level, or maybe you've hit the tipping point for that product or service. You've actually maxed it out, which that's kind of rare for chiropractors. So that's what the training is about. Okay. Takes a lot of training, et cetera. So let's say we eventually get to that point where they not only can recommend all the visits for the 3 phases healing, but now they're at a high dollar per visit. Let's say they're at $50, $60, $70, $80, $100 per visit in their recommendations for the maximum care, and they're getting over 50% pre-period, okay? Before there's a tipping point, because there will be a tipping point. Like I say, eventually the masses will stop buying a product or service at a certain dollar amount. So that's how you find your tipping point. Max yourself out and then max the dollar amount out and then watch your statistics. Okay, so let's say we max that out. And then you also have to know industry standards. Or how does this relate to the industry? Well, obviously it's a skill problem. If you're at, $30 a visit and you think you've maxed out and the national average is 42. Well, that's a skill problem. That's not a dollar amount problem. So these are all numbers that we're paying attention to. So, but let's say that's how we get to the patient recommended visits first. Then that's how we increase the money, is a little at a time, keeping your eye on the statistics that over 50% are prepaying until we hit that tipping point where now a large number of people just start saying no. But you're taking them all through all 3 phases of healing and you've maxed out your time. Okay. Okay, so now we've maxed out our exchange of time and we've maxed out our money. So that's 1 stage, 2 stage. So that's another step. Okay, so what's the next thing we can do to help max out? Let's stick with time for a second. So now what can we do with time to help increase how much business we can handle? Well, remember, we want the doctor to get to doing less and less and less to where they're only doing the things that make money. So what's the first leverage system? Well, a CA that's trained in how to do therapies, how to do consultations, how to do examinations, how to do x-rays, how to do patient education. So it's a higher level CA, somebody who's well trained. Well, that relieves another major burden of time off the doctor for free them up to see more patients to increase their profitability. Okay, so that'd be the next step. So that's 3 different steps right there. And then what do you go for the next step? Well, now another step is to add in. So now we're at the 4th step now. So now you can add in a higher dollar per visit, but that's not what's recommended first. What's recommended first is to stick with your existing business and now offer them lifestyle care. So remember, there's three types of patient care. There's symptom care, there's 3 phases of healing, functional capacity, then there's lifestyle care, and you don't sell them together. That's a huge problem chiropractors try to do, is they try to sell lifestyle care right up front. Well, when you go to you take your car in for a flat tire, you don't want him to talk about maintenance care and long-term care. You want him to fix your flat. Okay, no different with patients that come in with back pain. So the rule is you take care of that problem first, and then you do the presentation for lifestyle care within 30, and you want it within 30 days. You never do it at the end because the motivations decrease significantly at the end. You want to do it after their problem has shown results, but within 30 days. That's when they're the most excited and have the highest trust and confidence. That's when the lifestyle presentation is given. So now you go to the lifestyle. Now you always want to go to that one first, because 20% of your patients will accept, as opposed to adding another system, a high dollar system. So you don't want to do that next, because you already have the existing business that knows, likes, and trusts you. And I always say 20% of those people will just accept it even if you're terrible at it, if you're terrible at delivering it. And the reason is because they know, like, and trust you. And I always say 20% won't take it, no matter what. No matter how good you are, 20. That leaves about 60% in the middle. That will determine your skill level. So you can control about 80% of the market here of people that will accept yes, based on your knowledge and skill level. That's a large percent. So we're already dealing with people that know, like, and trust us instead of running to another system, see? So we can easily double the case average with that patient by not getting any more new patients. That's why you want to do that one first before you run off laterally and bring in a whole new system that needs different players. Okay, so that's the 4th system. Okay, so patient retention first. We maxim out the fees. We went to the CA to leverage our time better. And then we stick with our patients to go to lifestyle care. And then you go, okay, well, what do you start with lifestyle care? Well, you stick with the rules. You lower it to make it highly affordable in the beginning until your statistics show you can increase the price. So you may think it's worth a lot. It doesn't matter what you think it's worth. It matters what people buy, and your knowledge and skill will determine that. So we'll start low. So the lifestyle system, it could start as low as $17 a month, $47 a month. It could start, and I recommend that always. I said, because remember, it's not the money in the beginning that's important. It's that you know how to deliver it and get acceptance. That's what's most important. Because once you know how to do that, then you can always start increasing the money. If you never learn and own the system, you're going to lose all kinds of business anyway, no matter what you charge. So it's always about learning the system first before you start maximizing the fees. Always. Okay, so start at a lower system, say it's $47 a month. If you're over 50% prepay acceptance, okay, that's good. Now, if it's less than 50, then your skill level's not up and you need to lower the money. You need to do both until you get your statistics up. Because remember, the single most important thing is acceptance first, not the money. So then you go for you learn how to do the presentation where, 7 out of 10 people go, yeah, I like that. Sign me up. Okay, for whatever that price point is. Then what do you do? When you've got them maxed out, then what do? Now you raise it. What's the rule? Now you raise it. How much do you raise it? No more than 20%, usually 10% to 12%. So instead of 47 now, 10% of 47 would be $4, $8, $5, $6. So we might go 55, right? So now instead of $47, it's $55. So let's just say $7 increments. So, okay. So we'll go, okay, let's raise it to 7. Not a paradigm shift. And this is a big mistake doctors make also. They get a lot of people to say yes, and immediately they jack the prices up, and then they get a lot of negative feedback. And then a lot of times they quit. They quit doing whatever it is that they should be doing. This is how you stair step yourself into wealth and knowledge and skill. And so you now go into, let's say you have over 50% of the people prepaying, you go, great. And you take it through a cycle of a patient 4 months, it's time to raise the fee. Anytime you can go through the cycle of a patient and you got over 50% of the people accepting, raise your fee. How much? 10 to 12%. That's the rule. And you just keep doing that until you hit the tipping point. You will hit a tipping point. Now, there's one other caveat to take into consideration here is your time. See, so if you're, most doctors can only see about 200 visits a week, give or take 20. So if you're already seeing, if you're already maxed out, I don't have to worry about 50% of the people prepaying. I can charge a lot more because I don't need that many more and I can't even handle that many more. So if that's the case, then I could charge a lot more faster. But let's say I still have time to see patients, then I don't want to do that. Or if I bring in an associate doctor, see, I created a vacuum of time now. So I want to stick to the rules again and not just, significantly jack the prices up and lose a lot of business because you don't have the skill level to process it. You haven't shown the ability to get people to say yes. So we wouldn't, in that case, we wouldn't. Okay, so what we would do in an optimal situation right now is the chiropractor's maxed himself out of time. He's maxed himself out with money. He's charging a pretty good, healthy fee at the higher end of the profession. And you do have to know national averages. The national average dollar per visit is 42. So now you're at the top end of fees and you've maxed yourself out with time. And you've leveraged your time at the first level. What's the first level of leveraging time? Is the CA. It's the CA that's learned how to do consultations, exams, putting people on off therapies, x-rays, and patient education. We get to where our CAs actually do all the patient education and get patients to prepay. That's ultimately where you want to get. That saves a tremendous amount of time, free the doctor up to do what makes the money, which is treating the patient. Everybody else doing everything else and get the doctor to narrow down what he does to the thing that only makes money. That's the whole goal in all of these systems, to do less and less of everything else. That's what all systems are about. Okay, so we've got the staff in place. We've got enough knowledge and skill to keep up to 70% of the people with prepays. We got the high end dollar per visit. Okay, next, what are we going to do next? Lifestyle. That's the fourth system. Add the lifestyles. Where do you start? Start at the lower dollar per visit to get yeses. Watch your statistics. Now, at this point in time, you're going to need an associate doctor because you don't have any more time. So you need somebody else to process the business. So you got to learn how to hire and train and manage the associate doctor. That's a whole nother level. Okay. Then you go to, so we're really talking about 7, 8 different steps is what we're talking about. So then we go to lifestyle, and you always start with lifestyle before you chase something else because it's already existing business. We talked about that. So we process them in the lifestyle, get over 50% of them to prepay, raise them, and then raise the dollar amount. Keep it under the 4-month life cycle of a patient of active care. Look at your stat again. If it's over 50%, raise it again. So you might start at 47 and raise it $5, $7, and then it just keeps coming up until again you hit the tipping point for that particular service. Okay, and that's based on statistics. And by the way, you have the ability to process them because you've created more time because you now knew how to take on the associate doctor, which is another system. So how many systems are we talking about? Patient retention, number 1. Number 2 is increasing the dollar per visit with patient retention. Number 3, we talked about the CA, training a CA to do all these things that take the doctor's time that he doesn't get paid for. And then we talked about the lifestyle system and then increasing the dollar per visit on the lifestyle system. So that's where we're at right now. So now we have good patient retention. We got a good dollar per visit. We got a good staff member with patient education and doing all the things that take my time that don't make money. And now we have the lifestyle system and it's maxed out. Okay, what do we do next? Now you bring in a higher dollar per visit system without violating without violating the gateways. And that's key. And that's a huge mistake doctors make. Well, what are the most common high dollar per visit services that do not violate gateways and cause paradigm shifts? Weight loss fits right into chiropractic, especially with the science of the 3 phases of healing, patient education. Neuropathy fits right in. Disc decompression fits right in. Personal injury, that fits right. Those are 4 big ones. Those are 4 high dollar per visit cases. So now what we want to do is have a marketing system that increases the percentage of those, whether it's personal injury, weight loss, whatever it is. And again, that's a knowledge skill level. So we want to take it to 5%, to 10%, to 20%, because now your dollar per visit is going to go from 50, 70, 80 to 100 up to 150, 200, 250. See, that's how you take that up, is now you apply that system. So how many systems are we in right now? We're in about what, 6, 7 systems. Okay. And then you want to do it, you want to leverage more time, increase the amount of money per time. Because remember, the first goal is to maximize your time. We've done that. The second goal is start maximizing your amount of money per unit of time. And then the third goal is to leverage your money and time. So what do we do now? Well, you can go to your second associate doctor. That frees you up to make even more money for the same amount of time. You can go to satellite offices. You can sell offices. I opened 77 offices in 20 states. I also had a personal injury office. I had 2 associate doctors. See, I had a combination of all of these. I had staff members that could do consultations, examination, and x-rays. We treated the regular chiropractic patient. We had a good dollar per visit for all 3 phases of healing. At a 74% prepay rate. 74% of the people accepted care when they go, yeah, that makes sense to me. I'll take it. Okay, so now you can increase your income with more associate doctors. That's another skill level. You can sell off offices, and when you know how to learn, train, and sell off offices. You can open satellite personal injury offices. We got doctors doing that now. I got one doctor that just opened 4 satellite personal injury offices in 6 months with our system. He makes more money on personal injury from the other offices than his office. And he's way more valuable to attorneys. That's a whole nother game. So that's how you take it to another level. And then what's the last pinnacle level? Well, what is the highest leverage of time and money that's created the most millionaires in the United States? Well, over 70% is not from chiropractic. It's not from being a dentist. It's not from being a medical doctor. It's not from being an attorney. It's from real estate. There's all kinds of real estate. So then you got to know, okay, what's the best real estate to get into and how do you do it? Well, if you're not real smart, you can leverage 3 to 1. You can not know much, go through a realtor and broker and all that stuff, and they'll want 30% down. So you'll still increase your asset 3-fold. So you take 100,000, turn it into 300,000, 30% down. That's not even being very smart, not knowing very much about real estate. Then, of course, the more you know, the less real estate cost. So you start learning about how to invest in real estate. Now you can take 100,000 and turn it into 500,000. And when you're really pretty good, you take 100,000 and turn it into $1 million. I've bought several homes with no money down at all, 0. They just turned over the asset to me, just like that. Well, that takes a lot of knowledge and skill to be able to do that. Okay, so that's the pinnacle. So those are the steps, and the psychology. They're all incremental. They're horizontal incremental and they're vertical incremental. And they all kind of lay on one another. In other words, you kind of had to know one layer to do the next. And then you had to know these 2 layers to do the third layer. In other words, you can't bring on an associate doctor if you don't even know how to keep patients and get them. See? That's how it works. And it's all based on knowledge and skill. And that's how I was able to go from a failing chiropractor to opening 77 offices in 20 states, did between 80 to $100 million a year. I had 2 full-time associate doctors. I had a staff member that did all that stuff for me. And I trained 7 doctors at a time. Every 6 months, I was opening 7 new practices, and I bought millions of dollars in real estate. And All of it except one property was owner financed without a bank. These are the levels of increasing your wealth. So in 1,700 square feet, 1,700 square, I was doing about $90 million a year with 4 employees. And I started with 1. These are the levels that you go. So again, in recap, incremental, and we're talking about confidence, confrontation, and conviction. They don't have that, you won't be able to do this. And you got to guard that confidence because it gets shattered easy. And people quit when their confidence is shattered. So you go one step at a time. So it starts with patient retention on the 3 phases of healing. From there, we'll go to the dollar amount. From there, we'll go to a staff member that knows, and we're talking about maxing our timeout first. So we max our timeout first. Then we increase the dollar, and this is all incremental, stair-stepped up. We go to leveraging time with a staff member that can do everything, except to where I'm only doing the thing that makes the most money, which is treating patients. Then we're going to leverage it up again into the lifestyle because that's the easiest. That's going to be incremental. We're going to look at the statistics to max that out. Now we need more people to process the business because we can create more business than we physically can handle. Now I need the first associate doctor. I have to learn that. And there's 7 different associate doctor business models, from a doctor that stays in your office to a doctor we train to open and pre-sell an office to a doctor that opens and runs a personal injury satellite office. So there's 7 different models of associate doctors. That leverages time and money significantly, and then take the money and leverage it 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 10-to-1 into real estate. And that's how you go from not doing very well to having making millions of dollars a year, not just 100,000 or so. So obviously these are major concepts. There's a lot of detail in each of these concepts, but those are the principles of how to start maximizing the money you make, your value. And that's one of the things you should look at, is you should always look to increase your value. How you do that? Take the money you make and divide it into 40 hours a week. What are you worth for 40 hours a week? And then you should always look to increase that by leveraging these systems. And I pretty much laid out, if you're a chiropractor, I pretty much laid out the order to do it. So it's really patient retention first, stair step, max out the 3 phases of healing, increase the price, go to the assistant that now can start doing all these things that frees you up even more. So you've maxed out your exchange of time for money. Then you go to maximize your money per unit of time, max out the price for that unit, leverage some time through the chiropractic assistant, then go to the lifestyle, max that out with the annual care, and then max out the price, keeping an eye on the statistics and your skill level and delivering it and acceptance level. And then coming over to your associate doctor, first associate doctor, second associate doctor, whether it's in your office. Again, there's different models. And then the last model is leveraging it up into real estate. And that's how you have an annual income of millions of dollars, not 100,000. So that's the basics. And by the way, if you want to learn how to do all that, that's exactly what we teach. Again, I'm Dr. Paul. I've opened 77 offices in 20 states. I retired at age 33. And then that was boring. And then I just went back to work doing what I love. So that's what we do now. We train chiropractors how to do exactly those steps, going from maximizing their profitability, their patients, their retention, their staffing, their systems, adding in another high profitable system, 1 or 2 systems, increasing the lifestyle, and then leveraging it ultimately into real estate, because that's where security is at. The security is not in practicing. The security is in the passive income, and that starts with the associate doctors. And remember, when your passive income exceeds your fixed expenses, that's when you can retire. That can be as little as an associate doctor, just like that. And of course, it's way more stable when it's real estate, especially if you get into the different categories of real estate that are real stable. And so you got to know that also. Anyway, that's what we teach. That's how we create a highly profitable practice and freedom and quality of lifestyle. That's exactly what we do. So that's how I was able to do everything we did. That's what we teach and train. You can check us out at Secrets of Chiropractic Success, or you can contact me directly. Go to secretsofchiropracticsuccess.com.